These roads of flames are catching a fire. Showed you I loved you, you called me a liar. Oh no, no, no.
Okay, hi everyone. So, in case you guys haven't seen yet, I finally posted a video after basically taking the entire month of like November off. Unintentionally, by the way. And my last video was kind of spunky. It was funny, and I did have a message in it, and we were talking about the story of Joseph, and how God tested his character to put him into his purpose, and that the people that had betrayed him and sold him into slavery and basically locked him away in prison directly put him in his purpose of saving Egypt and his family from a famine, from believing that God was actually speaking to him through his dreams, and his dreams, he got to watch them come true, basically. And not like, it was prophetic dreams he was having, actual dreams, not like, I want to be a rock star. In this video, I'm going to do my best, my very best, but I want it to be a little bit more raw about what's been going on in my life a little bit, to share a little bit more of a testimony. It's just difficult for me because this is so like rooted in hurt and pain and just like self-hatred and like dysfunction, I guess. And it's almost embarrassing for me to talk about, because when you watch my videos, I'm usually pretty happy, or you know, sometimes I'm serious, but never like broken. I think there's like one video where I'm like crying. I promised myself I would never cry, but that was honest, like there was a reason for that. But in this video, I kind of just wanted to dive back into the word and do my best to share this testimony, and just be honest and raw with you guys, so that, you know, somebody else who's going through something similar can be like, okay, I see you, or okay, you just made me feel seen. Okay, hold on one second. So, just a little bit of background on me. I grew up in a situation where I didn't have a lot of family around me, so I didn't really grow up with that many cousins. The family that I did have was usually just my immediate family, so my mom, my dad, my brother, my elder sister. And as a child, I didn't realize that it wasn't normal for families to operate in the dysfunction and hatred and turmoil that my family was operating in. We weren't operating at all. It was a mess. As a child, you know, you're taught, and your view usually automatically is that mommy and daddy are the whole world, right? They're almost God to you in a sense, or your first look at who God is and how God, you know, treats us, right? Parent to child. It's your first interaction with love when you come out of your mother's womb and they place you on her chest. Now, I was a rainbow baby. My mom had lost 2 children before me. So I assume that my parents were very excited to have me as a child. I am not, my elder sister was not my mom's child. So it was a little bit different in that aspect. But despite it all, like, I didn't realize, I guess I was wearing rose-colored glasses, or I couldn't believe that it was possible to beg God for a child or children and then treat them so poorly. And I mean, just very, very bad. And there's this saying that people say where it's like, it's one thing if your family loves you, but it's really hard to be loved and not liked. And I completely feel that. Just because somebody can say they love you and they do anything for you, but then complain the entire time and throw it in your face the entire time. And the truth is, it's not actually love, because that's not what God shows us in the Bible, right? When he describes love to us, and I think it's Corinthians in the New Testament, chapter 13. That's not supposed to happen, but that's what humans label as love. Oh, I love you. Oh, come hug me, come kiss me, I buy you gifts. And it's very superficial and confusing. And it was confusing to me as a child, and it's still a little bit confusing to me as an adult. Is that somebody can give you physical things, but yet never be there for you emotionally, mentally, sometimes even physically, just their presence. You just see reminders of them in whatever. And it's painful because as a child, I didn't realize how emotionally neglected I was. I operated kind of as my parents' therapists. Both my mom and my dad. My happiness was dependent on their happiness, especially my mother's. And my parents tag teamed very like a coordinated chaos almost, where my father was extremely behind the scenes bad, and my mom was very explosive, like emotionally explosive, very emotionally explosive. And so they were like the polar opposites, but almost working towards the same evil goal, which is in turn to upset or disrupt my purpose, and upset and disrupt my brother's purpose, and upset and disrupt my sister's purpose. And that's ultimately the goal for family dysfunction, is to upset the children, the fruit of that marriage, to upset their purposes. And a lot of times when I'm talking to people and I'm like telling them a little bit about my testimony, they're like, why do you still follow God? Why? You have no reason to. And even like people who aren't Christians, maybe they don't talk about God, but they're like, why are you still here? Because the things that you've gone through are so shocking and so horrific that you should be completely different than the way that you are. And my only answer to that is God. I don't even know. I don't know myself. I don't know. I agree with them. I should absolutely hate God, but I don't. He's the only one that was there for me when I had nobody. It was so painful to watch the things happen to me and watch the people that were set to protect me by God betray me from since small and berate me and spit on me and hurt me and abuse me. And it's hard now trying to relearn what love is and my self-worth and what I should and should not put up with. So that's a little bit about the background. Now, what had happened last month, maybe one day I'll share the entire story, but I'm not comfortable doing that today. Just because I feel like it's triggering. It's triggering for me still, is I'm still kind of in shock about what happened, and I feel like it'd be triggering for other people. I don't know. Because at the same time, too, I know that people can relate. Because I've talked to some people about similar situations. And I know that they can relate. I don't know what to do. Okay. Oh my gosh, hold on. You know what? I think I am going to share what happened just a little briefly, because I think it is important. And I think that some of the things that I do go through are to help other people. So I'll give a brief story. So basically, my family situation right now, my mom is separated from my dad and my brother right now. I live with my mom. It's very difficult for me because I believed that when my mom had left my dad and their abusive relationship, that my mom would finally be there to emotionally support me, because she was no longer going to be. I don't know how I twisted it in my head, because I know that that's not true, but that's how I thought it was going to be. I thought that finally I could have the relationship with my mother that I never got when I was a little girl. And that was not the case. And I have been diagnosed with major depressive disorder for a few years now, generalized anxiety disorder, CPTSD, and PTSD. Very complicated PTSD. And I'm still in the process of working through it, but it's very difficult to try and do these things alone, especially when somebody's physically there, but not there. Like, it's like a weird. It's like the inverse of a ghost, where like you can see them, but they're everything. You can't touch them. It's just not, they're not there. So it's just been difficult for me dealing with these things. Now, I had recently gotten injured. I always get injured. But I fell down the stairs, right? Twisted my ankle, and so my knee buckled. So then I rolled my ankle, slammed my kneecap on the ground, and so it was just a complicated ouch. My knee still hurts and it's still swollen. I just had an MRI today. Yeah. And I was walking on it for a few days. It was fine. Then it swelled up like So my mom was like, go to the doctor. She came to the doctor with me, and the doctor was like, this looks pretty serious. It's, your ACL is swollen. This looks like it could be a sprain or it could be worse. We're going to monitor it, see what happens, wait for the swelling to go down, and then we're going to probably try to order you an MRI, right? Now, from PTSD I have about my last injury I had, they delayed my MRI so late and sent me to PT that I had a fracture in my spine, and it was not discovered until months later. So in my fear, I was like, hey, look, once I got home and everything, it was like 3 a.m. on a Saturday. 3 a.m. on a Saturday morning. I called my mom because I had woken up sweating and my leg was in a lot of pain. My foot was swollen, and at the time we didn't know that I had injured my foot. And my knee was not doing too well. I had ice packs, everything. It wasn't doing too well. I was on crutches. No, I didn't even have crutches yet. So I begged her to send me to the emergency room because I was scared. Part of it was, one, wasn't totally sold on that it wasn't broken, so I wanted an x-ray. And two, I wanted to push for an MRI because the last time, like I said, it was almost a little bit like malpractice, because I should not have been walking, going to school, doing the things I was doing, playing sports with a back fracture. I fractured T8 and T9, my vertebrae, and now I have chronic back pain. And it's not fun because there's nothing they can do about it now. So, me calling my mom, it just bursted into an argument where I was having to prove to her that I had an injury that was serious enough to be taken seriously. And even if the ER didn't do anything, I still wanted a second opinion, and I was gonna push for it because I feel like if I didn't advocate for my health this time, what am I doing? Like, I'm not taking myself seriously. And I have to remember that I don't need to try to prove anything to anyone. What I should have done is hobbled in my car and driven myself or called 911, but I didn't unfortunately do that. And all I remember was that my reaction to her reaction was completely out of trauma, just PTSD. I just remember a flood of adrenaline and emotions just filling my body with just the most immense amount of fear and hatred that I've ever felt. And I snapped. And I, on one leg, basically, it was bad. Okay, it was bad. And I did do wrong. I did. And I don't know, it was weird. It was like, in the attempt to try and help myself, I have to remember not to hurt others. But it's so hard because I always feel like I'm compromising my own well-being for her well-being specifically all of the time. And it goes unnoticed because it's a part of the realm where she doesn't understand. And that part is emotional. She's there physically, but she's just not emotionally there. She's just not. She's not capable of showing me. Sorry, what was I saying? She's not capable of showing me that type of love. I've seen her do it with other people, but when it comes to me, she looks at me, I feel like, through a different lens, at least through my perspective, of somebody more mature than her. And it's kind of damaging for our relationship because I can't help her, in the stage of life where she's at. I've never been married. I've never had kids. I can't emotionally support you. One, because that's not my role, and two, because I haven't been there. Even if I wanted to help, I can't. But you as my mother, you have been 19 before, and you have experienced some of the things that I'm coming to you about before, and it just hurts me because it feels like the relationship has always been extremely one-sided, and that the way that I learned forgiveness was very toxic. It was just forgive and forget, move on, and act like nothing has happened. And that was taught by her and my father, where I would watch them get into some crazy arguments and then the next day just like pretend that everything was fine, clean up, and it's just so confusing for me. She did not take me to the ER that night. That morning, the next morning, or later in that day, I guess, when it wasn't 3 a.m., I'd woken up and she said that I was going to go to the ER. And I was like, why did you all of a sudden change your mind? I was confused. And I know in the spirit, something was telling me that something was wrong because she had her work pants on and her work shoes, like she was going to leave me at the hospital. And I had asked her, which I shouldn't have, but I was like, why are you wearing your work clothes if I'm going to I don't know where she was. I didn't know where she was taking me. Because I couldn't really drive because I couldn't really walk down the stairs. It wasn't my right knee that was messed up, but it's still probably not a good idea to try and drive like that. But basically what happened was she ended up committing me into the psych ward against my will. And I was there for 6 days. 3 days in the normal hospital because they didn't have a bed. And then 3 days in the psych ward. And when I was in the ER and she all of a sudden flipped because I thought I was going to get help for my knee, I remember when she decided to say, oh, we're committing her or whatever. I feel like I just gave up on myself. I feel like I didn't even fight back. I guess I could have gotten up and left. Kind of. I was literally in a wheelchair. And I was just dumbfounded because I was just like, the help that I need is to not be in the home that I'm in. It's an environment issue. All of my symptoms, my depression, my PTSD, everything is triggered by being either with my father or my mother, sometimes even with my brother, and kind of having no choice. And we had discussed with my therapist, what specific therapy that I needed to go to, and it was trauma therapy, which was scheduled during the time that I was committed, so I didn't get to go, unfortunately. And I just watched as all of my rights were taken away, everything was taken away. Aside, I couldn't walk, obviously, but I was in bed for 6 days. I could not do anything. I had to beg to use the shower. I had to ask for food. I had to ask for help to hop to the bathroom because they kept removing the wheelchair. I got an x-ray done twice. Once at the normal hospital and then again at the psych ward because they were like, something is wrong with your leg. It was that swollen. Nothing was broken, but I kind of knew nothing was broken because the doctor said nothing was broken. I wanted her to write me an order for an MRI, which we knew, but it just delayed the whole process, which is unfortunately why I didn't get an MRI done until a month later. I lost a job opportunity during that time because I was supposed to show up on that Monday at a new job to start training. And it just felt like my whole world fell apart like that. Like, it was just fast. And for the first time in my life, I felt numb. And even though this is an embarrassing story to tell, I want to share how I felt because I know that other people are feeling like this in different types of situations similar to this before. I've had friends that have had similar instances happen to them with dysfunctional families, feeling these feelings. So I want to make sure that people don't think that I'm some old holy saint, and I'm not. I felt hopeless. I felt betrayed by God. I actually was asking him over and over again, why have you just forgot about me? Like, the argument I had with my mom was not one of our worst arguments. And I was just going through my head, as overthinkers do. We write a list in our head, pros and cons, like, why did this happen? What's going on? And I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that what had happened to me and what she had done to me, the betrayal that I felt, because I thought that I was going to get help for my knee. Like, I thought that she cared, right? I thought that, she cares now, And no. No. And that was such an eye-opener for me to know where my place was with her. And I just remember feeling numb emotionally for the first time. It felt like a burning, like my leg. It felt like my leg, but in my heart. And I wasn't angry at God like I usually would get in an instance like that. I was numb. I was just like, I just gave up on myself. I was just like, okay. I did my best to advocate for myself and that, whatever. And having to still have to interact with my mom and her being like, are you okay? And I'll bring your stuff for you and I'm going to come to visit you. I just remember swallowing all my emotions because I know that if I didn't, then I would really need to be committed because I would not act appropriately. So I felt like I split my personality into two, or my conscience into two, where I wasn't being committed by my mom. I was just in the hospital and my mom was coming to visit me, right? And so I channeled that instead of really the whole situation, just to get out, just to push through it. And I've never had to do that before, and I don't like that. That's disassociation. That's dangerous. But I genuinely, and I still don't really know what I could have possibly done. And a couple days into it, I just remember crying this one time. Like, I woke up and they told me, yeah, the bed's not going to be ready yet, so that means I'm going to have to stay there even longer, and just crying in the hospital and trying not to, because once they think that you're crazy or whatever, which, there was a lot of girls that were being committed by their families in there. I'm not gonna lie. It was kind of like a trend, like a pattern I was seeing, and I completely forgot what I was saying, but yeah, it was just a weird trend of like parents committing their kids. Now, I don't know everybody else's situation, but it was just weird to me. But anyway, I just remember one of the days I was crying, and a nurse had come up to me And she was like, honey, don't cry. And she gave me some tissues, and she's like, it's okay. You know, everything's going to be okay. And she looked me in the face, and she was like, God never lets you or allows you to go through something that you cannot handle. You're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. He's with you. And I don't know if you believe in God or not, but that's what I believe. And I remember just staring at her dumbfounded, because that's something that I would say to somebody else. Like, I'm never on the receiving end. I'm never on the receiving end. Like, I'm thinking about the last time somebody started talking about God as if I didn't know God, and I don't remember. That was one of the first times, because I'm always the one dishing it out to people. And I just remember staring at her dumbfounded. I didn't even say, oh, I'm a Christian, and I know that. Like, I just stared at her, and I was just like, thank you. That's all I could say. And I was still numb towards God about it, but I know that after I got out, I'll be able to look back. I saw how God comforted me in every single little bit, every single day. Somebody came to me and somebody gave me some kind of word of encouragement. It was weird. Somebody. It was like, I mean, there was an EMT guy who came when my bed was finally ready. And for some reason in my head, I felt like I had seen him before, like I knew him. And he was talking to me like he knew me. And when I was leaving, I was like asking for food because I wasn't getting dinner and it was late and they were not going to give me dinner at the psych ward. So, and he just gave me like an extra sandwich. He's like, here's one for the ride. And he just kept saying like, it's going to be okay. Like, you're going to be okay. You're going to get out of this. And I wish everything, like I wish for the best for you. And I was just like, am I talking to an angel? What's going on? Because they didn't talk to other people like that. And there were some people that were tripping out. We'll talk about that another time. I don't want to be mean because it's sad. You know, unfortunately, mental illness can get to the point where it's untreated. And, oh my gosh. It's untreated to the point where your mind, you know, it's dangerous to not have God in your mind. But it was just weird. And when I was in the ambulance and they were taking me to the psych ward, the lady was talking to me. And I felt like a human, you know. In the hospital, I didn't really feel like a human, you know. And it's sad because nurses don't treat you very well. You know, they don't. Even in the psych ward, they treat you like you're stupid. Worse than if you were in school. And worse than being black in school, talking about black rights during 2020. Okay, it was that bad. Like, they treated me stupid. Anyway, went to the psych ward, traumatized still. They put me in an area. It wasn't like super high. Like, I still had a little bit of freedom, but they drug you up still. You have to take pills. They don't want to hear it. Roomed with a lady that was older than my grandma. Everyone there was older than my mother and my father, who are both in their 50s. Way older. I mean, everybody had gray hair, okay? I was with grown men. I felt so uncomfortable. I have never felt so anxious and afraid in my life. And the anger I had turned to fear. Like, it was like the depression left my body and it just all turned into like fear. I felt like I was being chased by a lion, like a predator. And I felt I knew that this was to completely throw me off so that I would never post again, so that I feel like I wasn't worthy to post again, so that I felt like I wasn't worthy of even talking about, you know, mental health or God or whatever. But the truth is, I don't make myself worthy. God does. And I want to read to you guys the verse that he gave me when I got out. We're going to go to Psalms chapter 18, verses 13 through 21. Verse 7 through 24. Then the earth quaked and trembled. The foundations of the mountains shook. They quaked because of his anger. Smoke poured from his nostrils. Fierce flames leaped from his mouth. Glowing coals blazed forth from him. He opened the heavens and came down. Dark storm clouds were beneath his feet. Mounted on a mighty angelic being, he flew, soaring on the wings of the wind. He shrouded himself in darkness, veiling his approach with dark rain clouds. Thick clouds shielded the brightness around him and rained down hail and burning coals. The Lord thundered from heaven. His voice of the Most High resounded amid the hail and the burning coals. He shot his arrows and scattered his enemies. Great bolts of lightning flashed, and they were confused. Then at your command, O Lord, at the blast of your breath, the bottom of the sea could be seen, and the foundations of the earth were laid bare. He reached down from heaven and rescued me. He drew me out of deep waters. He rescued me from my powerful enemies, from those who hated me and were too strong for me. They attacked me at a moment when I was in distress, but the Lord supported me. He led me to a place of safety. He rescued me because he delights in me. The Lord rewarded me for doing right. He restored me because of my innocence. For I have kept the ways of the Lord. I have not turned from my God to follow evil. I have followed all of his regulations. I have never abandoned his decrees. I am blameless before God. I have kept myself from sin. The Lord rewarded me for doing right. He has seen my innocence. And that is chapter 18, verses 7 through 24. I can't believe I've never read that verse before. But when I read it, because I'm like a poet and I love language, I love writing, and I love literature, the way that this psalm was written caught my eye immediately. Like soaring on the winds of the wind, the Lord thundered from heaven, at the blast of your breath, just everything was just, I could visually see it. As I was reading, I could see myself drowning at the bottom of the sea, and it was a sea of black, like just death, and I'm just there, and I see him soaring, splitting heaven open, coming through the skies and parting the sea like he did in Moses' day, and just like calling me out of a tomb almost. Like Lazarus come out. He was like, Sidonia come out. And that's just like the visual that I got reading this. And it was so powerful that it did almost straight up restore me. I came out a mess. And I didn't show it because I couldn't show it. Because if you show it, they want to throw you back in there. And I know that I needed to go to God. And when I did, he didn't scream at me. He didn't yell at me. He didn't throw me into a ward. He showed me love and compassion and the truth. And the truth was, I was attacked at a moment when I was in distress. I was in the psych ward in a wheelchair for 3 days. And I couldn't walk. I had to get one of those handicapped showers so I could take a shower. I had to hop on one foot to use the bathroom. I learned how to use a wheelchair. But, you know, my mom had taken my shoes and my phone and some of my belongings, even though I had asked the hospital to not release it to her. You know, since I'm an adult, I'm supposed to be able to say those things, but she took it anyway. So I was in the hospital without any shoes. And when I got home, my feet were so dirty. My socks were so dirty. They were black. And I had the cutest pink socks on. I had dressed up so cute because I felt like dressing up cute after the argument we had had, even if it was just to go to the ER. And my socks came back black. And they had bugs on them. Like, it was disgusting. And what was I supposed, like, I had hospital socks there too, but it was very cold. It was very cold. I've never been so cold trying to sleep like that. So it was just very uncomfortable, the whole situation. But I have to give God credit where it's due, because then I would not be giving an honest testimony. Where I expected God to be like, yup, your mother is right. You did a horrible thing. Now, I admit my sin. Maybe one day I'll get on here and I will describe the way that I absolutely blew up and attacked her. But it was not to the scale that the betrayal was required, if that makes sense. I had watched the same things happen to me as a child. And so even though it's not normal to do that, and it's never okay, when you go back and try to be normal after living in a war, it's just very difficult. And it can be a trigger like that just absolutely sets you off, where you shut down like a fight or flight. And that night I chose fight, and I shouldn't have, but I did, because I reacted in fear and fear. Like, it was like, there's one thing about being afraid to like get on a amusement park ride, and then there's another thing about being afraid of death, and then there's another thing about being afraid of living hell and never being able to die. That's the kind of fear I felt. Fear. It was like I was being chased by a cougar. Something horrific. I was so scared that I was going to be mistreated. And unfortunately, that was still the result. Came out of the hospital. And my grandma didn't know where I was. My aunt, who usually checks up on me, she was worried about me too. I had to let them know what happened. They know how dysfunctional my relationship with my mom can be. They know, my grandma more so knows about the trauma that my mom has put me through and that we have been through collectively together. My aunt knows a little bit about this. My aunt has seen the way that my mom treats me and the little tantrums that she throws while, sometimes we're visiting her out of state, and it's embarrassing, but sometimes you just being an adult, if I've ever learned anything growing up, it's this: just because you're an adult doesn't mean anything. Like, you're just a tall child. And I'm not kidding. What you don't work through in your teenage years, what you don't work through in your early 20s, what you don't work through as a child does not just disappear and work itself out when you become an adult. You're still going to be dysfunctional. If you were a dysfunctional child and you don't do anything about it, you're going to be a dysfunctional adult. And then if you have children that way, guess what? You have a dysfunctional family. And they don't know you're dysfunctional, because you're supposed to be teaching them that other people are going to be dysfunctional. You're not supposed to be the dysfunction. But anyway, even though it's very raw, and I'm sorry if it's triggering for anyone, I wanted to share this because I wanted to give God credit where it was due. And it was due here. And it was due here. I actually wrote on a sticky note with crayon, in case you guys don't believe me. They didn't give me, pencils, pens, markers. I got crayons, okay, to write on. And I literally wrote in crayon, in the purple down here: God is not going to put you through anything you can't handle. I wrote word for word what that lady had said. And God is always with you on the back. And I wrote that and I stuck it in my Bible. My mom had brought me my Bible to the hospital. So I stuck it there. So that's that part. And then the other part that I wanted to share in this video, I had forgotten to read these verses last video, so I'm going to read it this video. Okay, sorry if I look terrible, by the way. It is right now 12:03 a.m. and I do have to wake up like at 6 something for work. But it's okay. It's okay. The reason I wanted to film actually tonight was an instance that happened tonight with my mom. It just invoked like a need to just share how good God is. And even if I never post this video, I know that even just being able to talk and get it out makes me feel better. And I want to be there to support other people, because I know how scary it is to just be betrayed like that. And that's why I shared the story of Joseph. Recently, God had brought to my remembrance the story of Joseph. And he brought it to my remembrance as I was reading Psalm 105, starting in verse 15. Don't touch my chosen people and do not hurt my prophets. He called for a famine on the land of Canaan, cutting off its food supply. Then he sent someone to Egypt ahead of them, Joseph, who was sold as a slave. And they bruised his feet with fetters and placed his neck in an iron collar, until the time came to fulfill his dreams. The Lord tested Joseph's character. Then Pharaoh sent for him and set him free. The ruler of the nation opened his prison door. Joseph was put in charge of all the king's household. He became the ruler over all the king's possessions. He could instruct the king's aides as he pleased and teach the king's advisors. And when I read that, the biggest indicator that I was like, oh, God is talking to me here, was, and I had underlined it, sold as a slave, until the time came to fulfill his dreams, big one. And then the Lord tested Joseph's character, big one. And then Pharaoh sent for him and set him free. The ruler of the nation opened his prison door. Just hearing that, and then hearing what we were reading previously in Psalms 18, like, he reached down from heaven and rescued me, like, that just like sounded bells, and the light clicked on, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have not been Job this whole time. That's not the trial I was going through. I was going through Joseph, and the boss battle was what had happened to me. And if that didn't happen to me, I'm going to be very honest and raw with you guys right now. It took that level of betrayal and pain for me to wake up and realize that I'm never going to change my I would have never accepted the fact that no matter what I did and no matter how much explaining I can do, I cannot reach my mom, and I cannot change my mom, and I cannot make my mom understand anything. We can't communicate. And God had been telling me this for months, and I was being disobedient because I couldn't believe that somebody who had lost children before, begged God for a child, gave birth, held this child in her arms, could possibly not know the pain that she was causing, even when the child is telling her to her face. I remember as a child, I used to draw diagrams, I used to write letters, and that's why I'm so intellectual right now, and I articulate very well, and I know a lot of vocab because I had to. I thought that if I talked like an adult, and I walked like an adult, and I acted like an adult, they would listen to me, and it's just not true. I watched them rip up letters in my face, laugh in my face, tell me how disgusting, disobedient, disrespectful, all these spew of dumb words, and it caused me to grow up to have so much self-hatred and to root my emotions in theirs. And so anytime my mother was sad, it had to be a bad day. If she was angry, it was going to be a bad day. If she was happy and I made her happy by doing something, it was going to be a good day. And that's how dysfunctional it was. And I thought that, okay, we're moved out now, I'm finally older, maybe we can have a relationship. And eventually God was just like, Stop it, Sidonia. Stop going back. And I kept reading the verse. As a dog returns to its vomit, as a dog returns to his vomit, so a fool returns to his foolish ways. And I'm the fool and the vomit in this instance. It was just so hard for me because I have no one else. That's not true. I do have people. And there are those people may have watched to this part of the video, but they know that they're there. I do have people. And the people that I do have, I honor them very much for the turmoil and the trials that they're going through as well. And even though they might not think that I'm listening, I do. I do listen when they talk about some of the things that they're going through. I mean, I know some people that are homeless. Some people that have been in the mental hospital for months. I couldn't handle 3 days. I was going crazy. Months. I know some people who have been sexually abused. There's just things that I haven't gone through that they have gone through, and I feel so much for them because I know that it's painful and it's hard to see other people go on with their lives and you get stuck with, stupidness. But God is not, oops, I forgot about you. He knows exactly what's happening. He sees. You don't have to prove to God anything. He knows your heart already. He saw that the way that I reacted towards my mom that night was not out of hatred for my mom. My goal that night was to get myself to the hospital, to get help. And somehow it got so butchered that I didn't get the help that I needed. I had to fight for myself to get the help that I needed. And that's what God probably wanted me to do all along, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And that's how much confidence I don't have in myself. And that's what I needed to learn, the lesson. That was the test. The test of character was, what are you going to do if you have nobody? And if somebody treats you like this, kind of like with Joseph, right? And his brothers finally came back to him begging for food. How are you going to treat them now? That's the test. How are you going to treat them now? Are you going to do what they did to you? Are you going to do worse than what they did to you? Or are you going to show them God's love? And that's the place that I want to be at, where I don't flip out, where I don't act out in anger, And I don't flip out. I, as a kid, flipped out way more than I do now. I feel like I mellowed out a lot, just because sometimes I look at situations and I'm like, it's not even worth it. And I'm busy. I came home right away and I got straight to work with a plan, straight to work. Worked on my doctor's appointments, worked on my mental health, got my hair done, visited my aunt, working on my mental health and my peace and fighting for my peace, being independent. I just used Uber for the first time in my life and whipped out a whole lot of money that I didn't have because I did not want to go through my mom again. And I made the mistake of trying to go back to her, and then I got smacked in the face. I was like, oh, do it yourself. You can do it yourself. You can do it yourself. You can do it. You are capable of. Yeah, sorry. I forgot what I was saying. But yeah. God is good. I listen, I hear people talking just a little bit about their testimonies, and still having the ability to say God is good. And you know what? I want to be one of those people. I just watched a video the other day of a woman who just had a miscarriage, and she didn't flush the baby out yet. I didn't know that's how it happened, by the way, that sometimes they wait naturally for the baby to come out, and she just straight up has her dead child in her stomach. I don't know what I would do, but I would not be okay. And somehow she still has the courage to get online and say, God is good. Where I would be like, God, why are you playing with me? She still had the courage to say, God is good. After something traumatic like that. And I gotta put, respect where it's due. That's a lot of respect I have right there. You're homeless, you're still saying God is good. You're with abusive people, you're still saying God is good. You're betrayed, berated, spat on, hated, smacked, hit, and you still say God is good. God sees you. He sees you. You are not going to be left behind, baby. He's not looking at you like, look at this fool. He is going to put you above all of those people. And they are going to have to watch. And I didn't believe when people would say that online because I'm like, oh, that's just prosperity. But no, it's in the Bible, right here, Joseph. His family had to watch him. What happened? Joseph was put in charge of all the king's household. He became ruler over all of the king's possessions. He could instruct the king's aides as he pleased and teach the king. The man became the second in command, and he wasn't even Egyptian. And his family had to watch him basically become royalty because they sold him. Royalty. So yes, God did not forget you. And God is going to put you together right in front of the faces. Put you back together and raise you up right in front of the faces that thought that they were going to break you down. And you know what? Who is getting the praise for that? Who's getting the glory for that? God picks the people who are going to glorify his name when he puts them in a position of power. And I want to be one of those people who are not going to turn away at the face of many faces. Who is one day going to be in a position where the whole world is watching, and I give God the glory. I give God the praise. I give God the praise. Okay, he gets the praise. He gets the glory. He gets the honor. My possessions, my life, my hair is his. All of it. The job I just landed, that's better than the job opportunity that I lost. Because I just said I was going to work in the morning, right? Y'all listen. He gets the glory for that. He gets the glory for that. He gets the glory for that. The way that I'm treated in such a kind way at this job, he gets the glory for that. He gets the glory for that. All of it. And it's painful, and it's raw, and it's funky, and this video is probably so long, but that's okay. I really don't care. Some people might watch and be like, oh, she's cringe. Some other people might watch, oh, she's crazy. Look, I don't really care. Because all I know is, I know who my God is. Y'all want to mess with Yah? Go ahead and mess with Yah. But good luck. That's all I gotta say. Y'all want to mess with Yah? Go ahead. But I don't play with Yah. I'm telling you right now, I don't play with him because he don't play with me. Okay. That's it. That's all I got. I gotta go to bed, y'all. But seriously, don't be discouraged. If you're going through something like this, know that you don't have to do a bunch of explaining with God. He knows. He knows the situation. He knows. He's taking every single thing into account. He is a righteous judge. I was very shocked when I read that verse that he gave me, that he found me innocent and that I had followed his regulations and decrees, because I came out thinking that I was such a sinner. One of the first things my mom had said to me was, so what is God telling you about this whole situation? And it was such a backhanded comment, because it was like, you know what you did to me. God didn't do this to me. You did. God allowed it to happen to me, but you're the one that did it. Don't act like it wasn't out of your will and not God's. It was not God's will. It was your will. And as I was going back, like, I thought God was going to say, oh, you're such a sinner. So I had stayed away from God for a little bit after I come out, because I just didn't know what was going to happen. But the one thing that God always does, if I make a mistake, he doesn't berate me like that. He's very honest with me, and he goes straight to the point. And what the freak was I saying? Oh my gosh, this always messes me up. Sorry. I'm sorry. What was I saying? Oh yeah. He's very honest with me. And when I finally opened up my Bible and I read that, I was shocked, because I thought that I needed to do something more to atone for the way that I reacted. But God knows why I reacted that way. And he knows that my heart and intention in that way. And he knows that I'm not doing it again. And that it was completely a trauma response. And that I was so sick that morning, even before any of that happened, because of what happened. But I was too afraid to ask for forgiveness that morning because of my relationship with my mom. Like, that's just how it is. It's that confusing. Where, like, even if I do something wrong, I'm too afraid to even go to her and apologize, because somehow it gets twisted, and I can't. I'm going to end up sinning again. So I just decided not to. Because I think that was safer for me. I still think that that's just the safest route for me. But when he said he rewarded me for doing right, he restored me because of my innocence, I was like, but God, I must be such a horrible sinner. I did something so terrible. I flipped out. But that's not true. That's not the whole story. I can understand if I got in trouble with the law, or I got in trouble because I got pregnant, or I got in trouble because I was fast, or I got in trouble because I was drunk, doing drugs, had a boy over. I literally lived the most boring life ever. I was probably the socially easiest kid anybody could possibly ever ask for. I just asked a lot of questions. But that was so that I could pick the right path for me to be on. I did not want to be a teen mom. I did not want to have heartbreak, right? I want to save myself for marriage. I didn't want to deal with that crap because we know I cannot emotionally handle anything else, okay? And we know one thing, I'm not going to mess with no freaking broken families. No, not me, okay? No. But it is true. When I look back at it, I'm like, wait a minute. But every decision I make, though, long term, is to glorify God. Genuinely to glorify God. Genuinely to glorify. Like, that is genuinely where my heart is at. And he just confirmed that for me. And I just thought it was so beautiful because in the part where I thought that he was going to attack me, he acknowledged that in verse 18, they attacked me at a moment when I was in distress. Verse 18, they attacked me in a moment of when I was in distress, but the Lord supported me. When I read that, I was like, it's like he knew what was happening. I wasn't in distress. I was very much in distress. I was scared. And not just I was scared. And there was many moments after that. I had so much insomnia coming out. Still have very bad insomnia because it's now almost 12:30. I'm so sorry this video is long, but that's okay. Almost 12:30, right? Today. And I have a hard time sleeping. I have to take a lot of anxiety medication because it's that bad. And I knew that it was going to be bad, but I didn't know it was going to be this bad going to the psych ward. That's why that was just never an option. I knew that, and my therapist knows that, and my family knows that, the issue that I have with my mental health and the depression and the anxiety and the PTSD is all triggered by my family. As soon as I go over to my cousin's house, my grandma's house, I'm good. I start to heal, right? The wound starts to scab over, and then I come home and somebody rips it off again, and I'm bleeding. It's so funny because it feels like I'm hemorrhaging every time I'm around the people that are supposed to help me, but it's okay. Anyway, it was just, I don't know, it was just so comforting. So I just wanted to encourage people. God sees the whole situation. Your mommy, your daddy's not going to pull a wall over his eyes. He's not going to pull a fast one. He knows exactly what's happening. He knows exactly what's happening. He's got it pinpointed. Even if they and you don't know what's happening, he knows what's happening. He knows what's happening. And he acts justly. And that's why I have so much respect for God. Because he acts in true justice and love and mercy. All of those three together make Sidonia have a lot of respect for somebody. And I want to be like that. I want to have true justice, true love, and true mercy as well. And I'm starting to learn the process of forgiveness and going through the healing process of forgiveness without the hatred that I kind of still feel when talking about the situation. And it's crazy. The insomnia is bad. It's never been that bad. I came home and I would just shake in bed all night in just fear, just scared. She would threaten me to throw me back into the psych ward every time we would end up having a disagreement. And but God sees. God knows. God sees exactly what happens, and he knows. He knows. You're not pulling a fast one over God, and I stand on that. You don't. But I was scared. And I also wanted to share really quickly, when I had come back home from the hospital, and I was having such bad insomnia and just like anxiety attacks. If you ever felt like a full-on panic attack, you know what I'm talking about, where you just have to stop and take a break because my blood pressure goes like whoop. Even if it's a little spike, I feel like I'm gonna faint. Okay, I have to sit down and just breathe and relax because my thoughts, they're always racing, but they go like a fighter jet racing when I'm panicking, and I just need to like. And it happened today at work too, where I just had to take a minute to just sit down, and I was out for like 30 minutes because I was just like, and it's just out of the blue sometimes, and there was no reason for it. Sometimes you don't even have to be said, like nothing has to be even happen or said to you, and you're just like, so sometimes you have to take a break, and that's okay. And they were very reasonable with it at work. But anyway, this was happening one night, and I was dead asleep. And in my sleep, God woke me up. I heard a voice, okay, in my sleep that said, what did he say? He said, wake up and pray, they're attacking you. And as soon as he said that, I saw all at the foot of my bed, like an army or a legion of just demons, like trying to climb onto my bed. And I just immediately started praying in tongues. When I tell you, like, sometimes I see demons attacking me, I've never seen so many. Like, it was like they were like a cancer. It was so many. And I can't really describe their faces or whatever because I always see them as silhouettes. And God was showing me what was happening because I don't think I was actually awake. I think that was a dream inside of a dream, or I was in a dream and I woke up in the spiritual realm because I saw myself sleeping, but I also saw the demons climbing onto me. I just started praying in tongues, okay? Praying like I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh. It was like I must have been, I remember the next morning I woke up like, I am at that much of a threat? Why are you sending 500 people to come attack me? But anyway, the next day, while I was going through a trauma therapy that they had put me in after I got out of the hospital, my friend in another state had called me, and she was like, Sidonia, are you okay? Is everything okay? I had a dream, and you were in it. And in this dream, you were sitting like in a white dress, and we were like chilling out together, and we were in a garden, a field of flowers. And we were picking flowers, and you didn't want to pick any flowers. You were just sitting there and your head was down and you looked distressed, like you looked like something was wrong. And I was like, dude, that is crazy that you had that dream about me, because that's really, like, that's how I feel. Like, that's how I feel. I feel like I felt it, like, numb. Like, it just was so uplifting because even in that moment, God was sending people to come and help me. And when I tell you, this is an online friend, okay? We've not even met in real life. And she's helped me more than all of my real life friends. All. Yeah. Straight up. I'm not even kidding. Biblically, yeah. Yeah. Like, by a landslide. And it's so refreshing for me because sometimes I forget what it feels like to have healthy relationships, you know? So it was really nice that God had sent somebody else to come and just encourage me and stuff like that. She was like, I'm praying for you. I hope everything's okay. And I had reached out to another one of my friends that I made over the summer. I didn't even really tell her what happened, but, you know, she was like, I'm praying for you. You know, everything's going to be okay. And she sees the abuse kind of that goes on with my mom. And, you know, people see it. Just some people choose to ignore it. And then, you know, but, you know, she saw it. And so she was like, you know, if anything's wrong, you can talk to me. It's okay. So, yeah. I mean, I do have some supports. So it's good for me because sometimes I feel like I have nobody. And even if you feel like you have nobody, you do still have God. You do have God. So, yeah. That's all I have today. I'm gonna make it a point to stop apologizing for having long videos, because number one, it is a podcast, and number two, I have a lot to say, and God knows that. So he knows that I don't hold anything back, and he knows that I'm gonna keep it real. So real and raw and honest. So that's my testimony. That's why I've been gone for a month. That was all happening. Just got my MRI done today. They said it looks decent, but they're not the doctor, so I'm gonna wait. Because the last time they said that, I'm pretty sure I got 2 MRIs on my back before they were like, oh yeah, you messed up. But anyway, I've still managed to go to work. Guys, I'm so proud of myself today too. I straight up took a shower. Y'all don't even understand. When you're depressed, oh my gosh, sometimes I don't even attempt anymore, just because I have to go downstairs. I usually run into my mom. It's usually a mess. I haven't touched that shower in months. I'm not kidding. I will go to the gym and shower. That's how bad it is. Like, I can't. Like, it's just, I don't know if it's an OCD thing. It's just, ugh. But anyway, I literally showered today. I smelled like booty cheeks, so I needed to, but I smell good now. I went to work today. Dude, doing those 2 things in the same day, and I posted my video today. Girl. And, dude, and I straight up went to my MRI and came back. I packed my lunch and did laundry. Dude, that's like 5 or 6 things that I did today. That, like, last month, I would never have been capable of doing in the same day. Can I give myself a round of applause? Like, can we appreciate, I know you can't see my other hand, but can we appreciate, like, that's difficult. So, yeah. Okay. Goodbye. 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 Bye. 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 I need to go. Oh.
Baby, tell me where you gone. I've been feeling for your love so long. We can praise